This is a TV show called Pagan Invasion. I think it was a mini-series that aired sometime in the early 90s, and it was basically a continuation of the ongoing satanic panic that took place at that time. People were absolutely losing their minds at the idea that there were Satanists around every corner. Right now, at this point in culture, there is a huge fear campaign that the government is trying to take your gas stoves away. It's a culture war issue. People are freaking out about M&Ms and all kinds of other ridiculous stuff. Well, at that time, it was all about Satanism and the fact that Satanists are secretly running societies behind the scenes, trying to take control of blah, 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 blah. So this show was kind of a response to that, or a reaction to it, where these two people talked about how Satanists were everywhere. It was absurd. This miniseries had, I think, 9 episodes in it, or 12 episodes, somewhere in there. This is volume 8 that I wanted to watch. The title is Preview of the Antichrist VHS tape. Absolutely absurd. I looked ahead to a little bit of it, and it gets nuts. So let's give it a listen, see what it has to say. And while we listen to these religious fundamentalist nutterbutters, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII. You can tell this is a VHS tape because you see the word play in the top right corner. Crazy, man, right? This brings back memories from the old VHS days. Cutting Edge Films International, okay. Honestly, really pretty graphics. I have to say, though, it's kind of a 90s feel, the graphics are. That's the holy name. That's YHWH in Hebrew, I think. It looks like it. No, maybe it's not. You know what? Yeah, maybe it's not. Wow, dude, the graphics are terrible. Why did they do this? Look, what are we even looking at right now? What is this supposed to be depicting? And how did they do this? Just computer graphics are at a different place in society nowadays. We're supposed to be going into this castle at the top of this hill, apparently. Okay. And what's with this terrible music? I'm trying to interrupt it sufficiently so that I don't get like copyright strike or anything. Look, he's got little houses in here and stuff. What the hell is this? What am I looking at right now? This is a weird intro, dude. Pagan Invasion. Okay. You would think that they wouldn't be playing rock music right now, right? Because rock music is evil? Or was it that time, I guess? The hell is this? What are we looking at right now? What is all of this garbage? A dude in a mask? What the hell? People dancing around a fire? Okay. A rock singer? I am so confused by this imagery right now. A card? Incense? What the? Is this like the Agent Orange thing that they're showing us right now? Ooh, making a triangle with your hands. You know what that's all about, right? Illuminati. The word Illuminati, to my knowledge, was invented in the 1960s as a joke. It was a fake conspiracy theorist fabricated by somebody writing Playboy magazine. He submitted multiple fake conspiracy theories to Playboy magazine that were all contradictory to each other, but the word Illuminati was used in all of them, and it kind of stuck. And then they made a bunch of claims about the back of a dollar bill. I don't know if you've ever seen the back of a dollar bill or if you've thought about it or not. I just so happen to have a dollar here, even though I almost never use cash, but there's a little triangle thing here, right? This triangle, this pyramid guy with the eye, that was actually originally from like the Middle Ages, and it was a symbol used to portray the Holy Trinity. It was a Christian symbol, but Freemasons started using it, I think in the 1800s, long after they put it on the dollar bill. Like the dollar bill had it on there for like, I don't know, decades by the time Freemasons started using it in their iconography. And of course, Freemasons are like viewed as the ultimate Illuminati organization. They are, the Illuminati. They are like the cabal that's out there, whatever. I'm sorry. The cabal is the Jews. My mistake. The Illuminati is the Freemasons. The cabal is the Jews. So anyway, the point is to troll people. Celebrities have been going out there making triangle symbols with their hands just to confuse people and freak them out and keep them on the back of their feet, And that's why they used the triangle symbol with the hands just now. Long-winded explanation, but I wanted to give you a little bit of cultural context for the time. Karate is evil, apparently. It's pagan. Oh, yeah, Halloween is evil, of course. And look, right here, this is another example of what I was talking about. The triangle with the eye, like you see on the back of the dollar bill. It was originally a sign of Christianity to mean the Holy Trinity. God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And conspiracy theorists picked it up and claimed that it was like, a symbol of the evil Satanists or whatever other garbage. Preview of the Antichrist. So yeah, I think that this is supposed to be about the Antichrist and their claim that it's going to be like somebody from whatever. Let's listen. Oh yeah, also I have this thing. I totally forgot about this, but I have this video from Pat Robertson. I don't know if you guys remember Pat Robertson. He was he did a cameo in American Dad famously.
Brett, tell this guy I'm okay. Tell him you can't have a log cabin event without me.
You're not invited, Stan.
What? Why?
Because your son stopped by the office today and dropped off this.
So it's me and hate-monger Pat Robertson. I met him at some party. I was just
Anti-Gay Palooza.
Walking through.
Hosted and funded by Stan Smith.
It was just a momentary lapse of judgment.
7th annual.
My mind's a blank. Brett.
That's pretty funny. Anyway, Pat Robertson was mentioned in there. He is a hate monger famously. He was terrible, dude. Here's a good one with Pat Robertson. There's a reason I'm bringing this up. Pat Robertson was super famous during this era of the pagan invasion and even contributed to this heavily. Listen to this clip from Pat Robertson on his show. This was from, actually, I'm not sure when this came out. 2013. This is from 2013.
You know what they do in San Francisco, some of the gay community, they want to get people, so if they've got the stuff, they'll have...
They're talking if they've got AIDS. If the gay community has AIDS in San Francisco...
A ring, you shake hands, and the ring's got a little thing where you cut your finger.
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, it's that kind of vicious stuff. Which...
No, this is completely made up. This is almost as bad as Tucker Carlson talking about how M&Ms aren't sexy enough for him anymore.
It'd be the equivalent of murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the equivalent of murder if it was real. So that's Pat Robertson. He also blamed 9/11 on the gays and the Jews and the sodomites and the whatever, Well, I actually happen to have a video from 1980 from Pat Robertson. It's 15 minutes long, and he's basically predicting the end in 1982. He says the end will come in 1982. Now, I'll probably watch this on my main channel maybe next week or something, but, you know, people have always, the basis for his claim is that Israel has become its own nation. That was the basis for it. Israel is a country again, and he thinks that that's like a precursor to the end coming. Israel has to be its own country, and he watches any major things that take place, any like major political shifts or whatever that happen in Israel or in the U.S., because he thinks that Israel will be like the center of Armageddon. And that is exactly what the basis for this whole pagan invasion thing is. The idea that Israel is out there, it exists as a country again, as foretold by the Bible, and that means Armageddon's right around the corner. That's the idea here.
Hello, I'm Chuck Smith.
And I'm Carol Matriciana. Welcome to this edition of the Pagan Invasion.
Ancient Hebrew and Christian Holy Scripture prophesy that the end of the world will be heralded in by the takeover of a persuasive political leader. At that time, according to Hebrew prophets of old, the world will be controlled not only by a one-world government, but will also have a global religion.
Dude, this is... God, dude. This conspiracy theory about a one-world government goes back pretty far. I'm honestly surprised that they were talking about this stuff all the way back in the 80s or the 90s. Seriously, this is like the basis for a bunch of massive conspiracy theories right now. The Great Reset, for example. They have this obsession with the idea that there's like a one-world government that's going to try to bring in one religion, and if you're not part of that religion, then they're going to persecute you and blah, 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 blah. It's nuts. And here we sit. 30 years ago they've been talking about this. 30 years ago. That's nuts, man.
It seems that today's spiritual and political climate points ominously just to such a climax. While many in the world today look longingly towards the goal of political and spiritual unity, the Bible clearly warns that such an event...
Oh, check it out. It's George H.W. Bush, the first Bush. So this came out in 94, I believe. And George H.W. Bush was president from, I think, 1989 to 1993. Check out the description on this. VHS Legacy. According to ancient Hebrew prophecy and 80s satanic panic bullshit, mankind will urgently seek the security of a one-world government in its last days. This global desire for a super leader who will bring peace and safety to the world in chaos will ultimately leave the human race vulnerable to the beguiling charm. Wow, that's a word I don't read very often. To the beguiling charm and grace of the most intelligent, powerful, and charismatic person of all history. This video is all about that topic. Yeah, I think it was 94. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Event cannot take place outside of the purpose and leadership of God. Unfortunately, man's agenda is in opposition to God's. This has been clearly illustrated over and over again throughout history. For example, around 2300 BC in the land of Shinar, the whole earth was of one language, and men decided that they would unite, make a reputation for themselves, excluding God, and build heaven on earth. This was in direct conflict with God's specific request, which told them to scatter throughout the earth, be fruitful, and multiply.
Okay, so you're not supposed to join together because God said, scatter through the earth, be fruitful, and multiply. So nobody should form any conglomerates, organizations, or governments, is what he's saying. Am I picking this up correctly? Is that what he's putting down?
Man wanted to consolidate his efforts for powerful political and spiritual gain and imagined himself able to oppose God's edict. That is the majority opinion today as well.
The same spirit of hierarchical arrogance and submission to anti-biblical doctrine.
Yeah, it is just about organizing. You're not allowed to organize, apparently. I have to imagine these guys had to organize into a business, a company, right? To even make this video, seems to me.
Was seen in the person of Adolf Hitler, who falsely claimed to be a Christian.
I love it. Falsely claimed to be a Christian. Adolf Hitler falsely claimed to be a Christian. They will come up with any excuse to distance themselves from this guy, won't they? When in fact, he shared a lot of their beliefs. This is just ridiculous.
Powerful combination of his
Godwin's law 5 seconds in, right? Jesus, dude.
arrogance and submission to anti-biblical doctrine was seen in the person of Adolf Hitler, who falsely claimed to be a Christian. The powerful combination of his occult paganism and political dictatorship resulted in the horrible Holocaust of thousands of Jews, Bible-believing Christians, blacks, gypsies, and others whom he labeled as inferiors.
You may be unaware of this, but gypsy is actually a derogatory term. It's been deprecated in favor of, I believe, Roma is the proper name now. You're supposed to refer to them as Roma. Roma people were very much persecuted during World War II. And honestly, they've been persecuted since the dawn of time. It's similar to the Jews. They've been attacked and maligned and hated and the whole 9 yards. So, I don't know. A lot of people didn't know that about them. A lot of people were unaware that that's the proper name for them. So I figured I'd let you guys know.
Hitler was an ardent evolutionist and passionately believed in Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest.
Oh my God, dude. This is... God, I can't believe that they were making all these same arguments all that time ago.
He saw...
God, they do just, like, recycle all the same garbage, don't they? It's the same nonsense over and over again.
the Germans as descendants of the only pure race, the noble Aryan spirit.
And they're going to use that as a basis to demonize science, to demonize the theory of evolution, right? Or the fact of evolution.
Hitler believed that he and his followers could liberate the world from the shackles of Judeo-Christianity. He hoped to bring in a new millennial empire on Earth, based on a new racial hierarchy ordained by nature itself.
Cult leader Jim Jones ordered his followers to drink lethal cyanide before killing himself.
That's true. This is actually referred to commonly as, a mass cult. It's not. It was not a cult. It was a mass cult / homicide. Those people, many of them didn't want to do it. Many of them didn't want to take part, and he forced them to anyways. He injected people if they refused. He had people coming up with needles and sticking people with this Kool-Aid cyanide mix. Seriously, this is really, really terrible. I think 706 people died that day, or was it 906? I don't remember exactly how many.
He, as their spiritual leader, manipulated their devotion and dedication by claiming his word to be all prevailing truth. More recently...
That's true, he did. And I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but Jim Jones, there's actually a survivor of the Jim Jones cult. And he did an interview a while back. You can listen to the tape that he played, too. He recorded the entire event. But there were survivors. Eyewitness account of Jim Jones. This guy crawled into a bush and hid and snuck out and survived the Jonestown massacre.
I mean, who started to die first? How did it go?
Jim Jones said, must do the babies first, take care of the babies first. So at that time, we were having nurses and going out, picking up babies out of mother's arms, and
that's pretty rough, dude. That's pretty fucking rough right there.
To them and took the poison. They took them and they laid them right outside the pavilion, right off into the garden where they was planting food and so forth. They laid them right out there.
So all the babies were laid out there?
Yes.
What about people who didn't want to? They saw all this going on.
People that didn't want to, I would say a lot of people didn't want to, they were just sitting there.
They were fighting and arguing and everything, and this was not the first time that he'd done this. He called it White Nights, where he would hold these ceremonies where he planned on giving it to them to kind of try to prepare them for the idea of it, only he didn't actually go through with it. And there were objections, you know, every single time. And finally he said, this one's real. They're coming for us. They're going to get us. They're going to kill us. Persecution complex. And people believed it. So some of them were willing. Some of them wanted to go with him, but a great many did not. And despite the fact that they refused, he had guards, armed guards, going around forcing them to anyways.
Frightened, afraid. Jim Jones was continually saying, hurry, hurry, we must all do this, we must dignity.
Because there was originally, if you're not familiar with the story, it's because it was originally People's Temple. That was the name of the church or whatever. And they were organized in California, I think, or they organized in one state and eventually moved to California. I don't remember. Anyways, time passes and they move all the way to Jonestown, South America. They set up an actual city there called Jonestown. And like I said, there are about 700 to 900 of them total, somewhere in there. There were people whose families believed that they were taken against their will. So they rose this issue all the way up to U.S. Congress. And I think Congress created a committee to investigate the situation. And a congressman, I believe, showed up in an airplane to Jonestown. And, you know, Jim Jones agreed to talk to him. And he met up with this congressman, and they chatted, and they met the people who were allegedly taken against their will, and the people were, you know, in front of Jim Jones. They were like, oh, yeah, we want to be here. We're so glad to be here with Mr. Jones. We love it here, and so on and so forth. But one of them slipped the congressman a note that basically said they're forcing us to do this and blah, blah, blah. Oh, give me just a second. Hang on, I'm getting a phone call. I have groceries coming up. I'm going to have to pause this when they get here and just put away the frozen stuff, and then I'll come back and continue on. So anyways, this congressman gets a note slipped to him from one of the people, right, that was pretending to be willing to be there. And Jim Jones, when the congressman was on his way back to his airplane to go back to the United States, Jim Jones got his guards, I think 4 guards, to murder this congressman. And at that point, obviously, Congress is not going to put up with, you know, I mean, the U.S. is not going to put up with one of the congressmen being murdered like that shit. Like, holy shit, dude. Imagine that happened in a foreign country. Imagine a congressman is assassinated by by the leader of France when he was visiting France. That would be a full-blown declaration of war, right? A U.S. congressman murdered like that? Holy Christ on a cracker. And Jim Jones used that as the basis to scare the shit out of the people and convince them to, you know, take part in this White Nights thing that he did, where he laced the Kool-Aid, which is actually Flavor Aid. Little known fact there, but he laced the Flavor Aid or the Kool-Aid with cyanide and then forced them all to drink it, whether they wanted to or not. Armed guards. And this one guy, well, it was actually multiple people that survived, but okay, while I'm putting my groceries away, this isn't really a relevant part, this guy, so I'm going to let him play if you're curious, and I'm going to eat a crock bite and put the rest of my groceries away. I'll be back in just 1 second, okay?
And so forth, and that began to come out of his seat and go flowing through the audience where the people were sitting, and beginning to pull them up out of their seats and lead them on into the where the portion was. And
did they go willingly?
Little struggle. Wasn't very much struggle. Just some. I seen one in one case. She struggled pretty hard because she didn't want to.
And how did they?
they injected her in the arm.
How quick?
Took less than 5 minutes.
How many people struggled like that?
I can only say, I've seen that particular one. I can only say that I've seen that one. It would be 2 people. They would lead them shoulder by shoulder, you know, to a clear open other field, and they would lay them down, face down, and let them lay there. I can't find the words to explain it. It's just something that I never thought it existed. Never wanted to. I never did wanted to believe it, that this was going to take place. It was just something that, after I seen that it was coming through, that it was going through, only thing I was trying to do was trying to figure a way out of it, because I never believed in taking my life.
How did you get out of it?
I managed to slip through one of the guards.
The guards with the crossbows?
Yes.
Did they also have rifles?
There was rifles around. There were rifles around when Jim Jones was going through the crowd of the people. There was rifles. Farther off in different areas were mostly what was around the pavilion where people were throwing arrows, flowing around a circle like. Their orders was if anybody was to run, didn't let nobody run.
You only saw a few people struggling.
Yes.
That tells me that most of them, well, what does it tell me? Does it tell me that most of them were willing to die, or most of them were too afraid to do anything else? Tell me.
I would say that most of them was too afraid to do anything because of the weapons, because of the pressure that they were under. Most of the people you're talking about are seniors and younger children and so forth.
How fucking whacked out is that shit, dude? You gotta be some kind of a sick to do that, right? Something broken in this guy's head. Not this guy, I mean Jim Jones. Something really, really wrong with this guy to be willing to do something like that. And it's not even like it was a split-second decision, like, oh, I'm gonna do something really, really messed up. This is something that he had planned for a long, long time leading up to this. He had, like, mass amounts of cyanide and flavor aid shipped to the compound for this. He put people through mock trials doing it over and over without actually lacing it, trying to get them to be more willing to. Just messed up on an entirely new level, dude. You can actually get a copy of the tape. Jim Jones taped the entire thing. I've listened to the entire thing, beginning to end. People crying, babies, Jim Jones saying, don't worry, this is what God wants, and all that other stuff. And then at the very end, a single shotgun blast, and everything was quiet. You gotta be some kind of a fucked up animal to do that shit. So anyways, that's what happened with Jonestown. It was a diversion from Pagan Invasion, but I just wanted to add a little context to what they were talking about when they brought up Jonestown. So let's listen to what they said about Jonestown one more time and continue on. By the by, somebody asked if there's like a documentary on Jonestown. For what it's worth, I've talked about Jonestown on my channel. It's not really a documentary, but I did go through a lot of this stuff. In fact, I think I played a couple of clips from that. So just search Telltale Jonestown or something.
Cult leader Jim Jones ordered his followers to drink lethal cyanide before killing himself.
I appreciate that they said ordered his followers to, because a lot of people are mistaken when they say it was a mass. It was not. It was a murder, a mass murder. Most of the people didn't want to.
He, as their spiritual leader, manipulated their devotion and dedication by claiming his word to be all prevailing truth. More recently, the sex guru of Oregon, evolutionist and Indian mystic Rajneesh, taught his minions hatred against Jews and Christianity. He mocked Jesus Christ while attracting thousands to...
Mocked Jesus Christ. What a monster, huh? I think I know who they're talking about, but I haven't done a full breakdown on him, so I don't want to talk about him too much. If his gravest sin is mocking Jesus, I'm sorry, I just don't care.
To his brand of occult paganism.
When you call Jesus, really you have called me. When you call me, really you have called Jesus.
His goal was to enlighten the masses in order to evolve a new world order. This same spirit
Dude, they got some kind of a weird obsession with a new world order, don't they?
Permeates today's hopes of a mystical super race of spiritual elite who will usher in the new age. It will be ruled by a world leader who claims to bring peace, but will ultimately bring destruction.
Is it possible man could ever become an endangered species?
An endangered species? No. Taking out biologists and scientists have talked about this. Like, what happens if, climate change hits the earth really, really, really hard? Will human beings, go extinct? And the answer is, taking out 80% of the human race would be nearly impossible. Taking out 100% will be fully impossible. It's not happening. The human race is like cockroaches. We will never fully disappear from the earth. I don't believe that for a second, not 1 second.
Consider this horrifying and incredible fact. Man now has the capability of eliminating the human species from the face of the earth.
That was another thing happening at the time. During the Satanic Panic, there was a big panic over nuclear weapons. And that one was justified. Satanic Panic, not so much. Nuclear weapon panic, most definitely justified.
In the world's arsenals, there are enough nuclear weapons to destroy all mankind. The peoples of the world cannot survive a major nuclear war. Survivors of any nuclear conflict would be the least fortunate ones.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing about nuclear war. Most people probably don't realize this, but if there was a nuclear war, these would be the targets. So if you look closely here, say Russia targeted the United States with nukes, right? They wouldn't launch one at New York City. What they would do is they would launch either 500 or 2,000. In a 500 nuke yield, 500 warhead yield, they would hit all of the purple triangles. In a 2,000 nuke yield, they would hit all of the purple triangles and black dots. So the purple triangles basically hit every city, every major city. You got 15 of them on Miami. You've got the entire eastern seaboard covered, Washington, D.C., New York City, so on and so forth. And all of these little black dots right in the Midwest here, these are our nuclear facilities, I believe, and our emergency services, military installations and stuff like that. That's why they're targeted in the black warhead yields. That's why they're targeted in the 2,000 warhead yields. So there's basically nowhere that would be safe. After all of these nukes landed, even in a 500 warhead yield, even if you were in a really, really comfortable spot, say right in the middle of Wyoming, far, far away from any of the purple triangles here, nuclear fallout would still, from all of these nuclear weapons, nuclear fallout would give you cancer without a shadow of a doubt within, 2 years probably, within 6 months maybe. You wouldn't be able to go outside. Everybody would be dead. And in this type of event, 80% of the world's population would be gone. 80% of the world population. Because the United States would automatically launch counter nukes at whoever shot them at us first. China, Russia, whoever. The UK probably has, like, some nukes that they have targeted at people, too. I mean, I'm sure most Western nations have their own nuclear weapons, I would guess. I mean, Israel certainly has their own nuclear weapons, even though they pretend they don't. So anyways, that's the whole situation with nuclear weapons. I don't really stay up worrying about it, honestly. I seriously, deeply doubt to the bottom of my heart that that's ever going to happen. And if it does, it won't matter because I won't know, right? So, no point in, losing any sleep over it, basically. I just thought it was kind of interesting. All right, let's keep listening.
The vital question is, what are the chances of another major world war occurring?
I'm Chuck Smith, and I'm also concerned about man's survival upon this planet. For many years, I've been studying the sociological trends, the population patterns, and the environmental conditions. And as man has been living so thoughtlessly as though there were no tomorrow, it is rather frightening to realize that he might awake one of these mornings and find there is no tomorrow. We have carelessly wasted the natural resources that God has given unto us. We have sown to the wind, and now the time has come when we must reap the whirlwind.
Ozone is a minor but extremely important constituent gas in the stratosphere.
Oh, this is super interesting because the ozone layer eroding is actually a problem that we solved. We were using something called CFCs back in the 1970s, I think. CFCs stand for chlorofluorocarbons, and it was the propellant that people used in hairspray and other aerosol cans to release the gas, or release the hairspray, release the whatever it is you're trying to release. Unfortunately for us, we didn't realize this at the time. Chlorofluorocarbons were eroding the ozone layer, which is opening a massive hole and putting us in deep, deep danger of developing even more cancer. Cancer is about to be like way more widespread if we didn't solve this problem. The ozone layer is repaired, as it turns out. We succeeded in fixing this massive problem by eliminating CFCs. It's pretty incredible that we succeeded. And yeah, we do still use CFCs, as Emily Neptune mentions. You're right. Yeah, we still use them, but they're banned in a lot of products, and they're not used anywhere near as often. And as a result, the ozone layer is in better shape. That's fantastic. As if we could, or if only we could put that kind of motivation to work for climate change. CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, they're the thing that propels things out of cans. I think now we use pressurized stuff, and we also use nitrous oxide. Yeah, I think we use nitrous oxide and pressure to propel things out of cans now, I believe. Mostly.
Stratospheric ozone screens harmful ultraviolet radiation from the Earth's surface. It is therefore principally the potential effects of increased harmful ultraviolet radiation such
as I said, this problem is resolved now. We don't really have to worry about this.
as skin cancer and biological and agricultural effects that are of concern.
With the population increasing so rapidly, 2/3 of the world already suffering from malnutrition, the scientists that have studied this problem are quite concerned about the next 20 years when they anticipate that the present population will have doubled.
Yeah, that's true. There was a problem with the population doubling like that. It still is, honestly. However, the birth rate is falling, and it's believed by scientists, I believe currently, at this moment, that we won't ever reach our 13th billion person because birth rates are just going to reach an equilibrium. They're going to even out, and eventually the population will stop growing. By 2050, we will probably not be going up anymore, or China will go from like 1.6 billion to 1.5 billion or something like that. I don't even remember. Don't quote me on this. Look it up yourself. But I believe that's the case. We're going to stop accelerating soon.
On the average, about once a year from the time of Christ, we have had major famines that have killed large numbers of people in localized areas. This year, roughly 15 million will die before they reach the age of 5 through causes that are related to inadequate food.
There are also grave concerns about the social upheavals in our society. It is not surprising that the crime, which is another severe problem, is increasing more rapidly among the children and teenagers than any other age group.
Okay, some of this stuff is just fear-mongering nonsense. Crime rates go up and down. This happens just depending on society and who's running things in what moment and what they do to fix the problem, so on and so forth. But yeah, the crime rate is way, way down in New York City right now from what it was when this came out. I mean, it's through the floor at this point compared to when this came out. I mean, that's just one example city.
All of these things that have been happening on our planet, the famines, earthquakes, the pestilences, the world wars, the false messiahs, are events that were predicted by
Hey, it's New York City, I think.
Jesus Christ, as signs of the end of man's futile efforts to govern himself.
Right. So Jesus is the only one that can govern us. This invisible man in the sky who nobody has ever actually proved that they've heard from. He's going to be telling us what to do, but he's going to be doing it through his guy, right? This one guy that claims that he hears Jesus' voice. We're going to have to trust him, believe that he really does, and do what he said that Jesus said that we should do. Okay, I'm on board so far. Go on.
From a biblical standpoint, one of the reasons I believe that man has come to the end of his time is the rebirth of the nation Israel. It is an event that was predicted by most of the Bible prophets and by Jesus Christ himself. As he gave the signs of the last days, he told his disciples that when the fig tree began to bud forth, that they would know that summer was nigh. Even though, he said, my coming is at the door. Then Jesus said that generation would not pass until all of these things be fulfilled. So the rebirth of the nation Israel marks the final generation of man upon the earth in this present order. And God took Ezekiel into a valley that was full of dry bones and scattered.
Yeah, I remember this Bible story. Greg Locke talked about it. For what it's worth, a lot of the stories you hear from the Bible aren't literally true. A lot of them were told as allegories or parables or whatever. The Bible is not a book of history at all. Some of the events that took place in the Bible may or may not have actually happened, but when asking yourself if they actually happened and recognizing that the Bible is your only source for them, think about this. Imagine in 5,000 years, scientists show up in Georgia and they're excavating and they happen across some Spider-Man comics and they read these comic books and note that the events that took place happened in Queens, New York. Hey, they say to each other, we know where Queens, New York is. That's a real place. The Empire State Building is a real place. How about that? These stories must be true. Somebody really must have been bit by a radioactive spider and gained the power to jump really high and climb on walls and shoot webs out of his hands and stuff like that. It's an absolutely ridiculous conclusion to reach. Some of these things may have happened, but assume that they're just stories, because that's what the Bible is made up of. They're just stories. By the way, Peter Parker, fantastic name for a gay guy, right? Oh my God. What better name could there possibly be for a gay dude? Anyway.
God said to Ezekiel, can these bones be made to live again? And Ezekiel said, Lord, thou knowest. And he watched as these bones came together. They formed a skeleton. And then flesh came upon the skeleton and muscles. And God said, and so shall I gather again my people Israel that have been scattered among the heathen. And I will bring them back into their own land. And I will establish them there. And so God has kept this ancient promise to his people. He has brought them back into their land. He has established them there.
Dude, I did not mean to hit the show me the tutorial button, and I'm thinking about backing out. What am I doing? Is it ever going to move on? I'm not sure what he's trying to get at with this, but okay.
Behind us is the Western Wall, which to the Jew is one of the most sacred places in the world. For just beyond this wall was Solomon's temple, but yet there at one time was the Holy of Holies, the place where God dwelt in the midst of his people. This is as close as they can come to that holy place. And since 1967, they have now been able once again to come and offer their prayers here at the Western Wall. It used to be called the Wailing Wall because they were not allowed here by the Arabs. But now that it is under Jewish control once again, they can come and once more worship their God in this sacred place.
Okay, just got a little history lesson about the Wailing Wall. Got it. I still call it the Wailing Wall. Do people call it the Western Wall now? I thought it was still called the Wailing Wall. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.